Now we are live on YouTube. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to today's special talk and film screening by Benoy Behl on sacred Buddhist dance. And today, the introduction will be presented by Sujata ma'am. That will be followed by the talk and the film screening, and we'll take some questions from the audience after the screening of the film. So, without further ado, I would welcome Sujata ma'am to deliver the introduction. And thank you so much, ma'am and Benoy sir, for accepting to do this film screening. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Ishan. It's our pleasure entirely. Good evening once again, and a very warm welcome to all of you. How does one speak of an art historian who is a respected speaker at a breathtakingly long list of universities and museums around the world? Yet, art history is only one part of his life mission. He's a filmmaker who has made over 140 deeply researched documentary films. He's an eminent photographer, Buddhist scholar, and a record setting traveler. He is the person who, for the first time, photographed the Buddhist paintings of Ajanta in their true colors and detail. His book, The Ajanta Caves, is the most widely read book on Indian art history in the world. As an art historian, he has clearly established a continuous tradition of painting in India since ancient times. His recent book on the art of India in two beautiful volumes is already in its third print run. His latest books are Buddhism, The Path of Compassion, The Buddhist Heritage of Sri Lanka, and Hindu Deities Worshipped in Japan. Other books by him include Northern Frontiers of Buddhism and Buddhist Heritage of Andhra Pradesh. Mr. Behl is also known for having photographed the Buddhist heritage of the world across 19 countries, as is seen in his popular photographic exhibitions around the world and in his recent book that I just mentioned. He has also documented the Ramayana performances in 10 countries of Asia. Mr. Behl's series of 26 films on the history of painting in India, 26 films on the history of sculpture of India, 12 films on the story of Buddhism, as well as other films on diverse cultural subjects, are regularly screened in New York, San Francisco, Chicago, London, Berlin, Beijing, Tokyo, Kyoto, and numerous other cities in the world. His films have also won several international awards at film festivals across the globe. D.D. Bharti has also telecast one film of his every day over the past 18 years. Mr. Behl is the first Indian about whom the American National Geographic magazine has done a major story. BBC World News have carried 3 news items about his work in India and in Vietnam. His notable contribution has been to take the heritage of Indian art and monuments to the world. He has also helped to rekindle the cultural connections between India and the other countries of Asia. Mr. Behl is the person who has traveled and documented the art of more monasteries across the Trans-Himalayas than any other living person. Over the years, he has made numberless trips to Ladakh, Lahaul-Spiti, and Kinnaur. He has also documented the art and the monasteries of Tibet, including the earliest surviving art of the 10th to the 11th centuries. Ladies and gentlemen, author, art historian, and filmmaker Benoy Behl will this evening take you on an enthralling journey through the magical dance of liberation of the Lamas of the Trans-Himalayas. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My apologies for my slightly disheveled appearance. Actually, I have an eyelid infection, but this talk had been scheduled, and I did not want to disappoint anybody who may have wanted to hear it. My thanks to Ishan Sharma for his very warm interest. It is a great pleasure to be speaking for Karma for the second time. It has been a very good audience the first time. Thank you so much, Sujata Chatterjee, for your introduction. And I'm so happy that my dear friend Tara Dhar from Singapore is also with us for the talk today. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the story of Indian philosophy and of the art which serves to take us on the path, on this philosophic path, is the story of a constant search for the eternal truth which is beyond the passing shadows of the material world around us. We see the familiar objects and shapes around us owing to the limitations of our senses and sensibilities. What we see around us is termed Maya or Mithya, an illusion. And the desire, the search is constantly to be able to lift the veils of this illusion, to be able to see the truth which is lasting, which is beyond this. The truth that is sought is considered, is termed in different philosophic paths as nirguna, that which is without the qualities of the objects that we see around us, or it is called arupa, beyond the forms of the material world. It is also termed shunyata, or the emptiness of the forms that we are surrounded by. Now, beyond all the treaties, the philosophic treaties, beyond all the argumentation, beyond all the philosophic ponderings, the action part of Indian philosophy is yoga in all its forms. It is through the many kinds of yoga. It is through the asanas, which create an asana or a seat from which we can meditate, or bhakti yoga, where we lose our preoccupations with ourselves in utter and complete devotion to the eternal, or it is through uh, selfless action, karma yoga. But it is the action part is through yoga. And by the 4th century, Asanga and Vasubandhu in Kashmir had developed the Yogachara school of Buddhism. It is the same form of Buddhism which traveled as Dhyana Buddhism through Bodhidharma from Tamil Nadu, most probably from Kanchipuram, up through Southeast Asia, through Vietnam, into China, where Dhyana Buddhism was called Chan Buddhism, and later it was called Zen Buddhism in Japan. In the meanwhile, Guru Padmasambhava took this form of yogic Buddhism from Kashmir, from the valley of Kashmir, which was this great center of Buddhism, to the Trans-Himalayas. And he carried this very yogic, this tantric form of Buddhism, and along with it, a sacred dance. Now, art, the stated purpose of ancient Indian art has always been to show us the grace which is beyond the ephemeral world. And all forms of art in India, whether it is painting, whether it is sculpture, whether it is music, whether it is dance, were all designed to help us to leave the concerns of the material world behind, to take us forward to something which is higher, something that is truer. And to do so, all forms of art are a form of meditation. We leave behind our daily concerns. In the silence, in the depths of the silence of the mind, we find or we search for another reality, a deeper and truer reality. Now, one of the most beautiful surviving forms of this yogic practice is the magical dance of liberation, the sacred Buddhist dance of the Lamas in Ladakh and Spiti. Of course, it is a form of dance which had spread completely from the Indian Trans-Himalayas right across Tibet. In fact, in Mongolia, I have seen some of the most beautiful, most expressive masks of the Cham dance. The Cham dance was extremely sacred and popular as far away as Mongolia. So, ladies and gentlemen, I will request Ishan to please run the film now. Thank you very much.
Over the past 31 years, I've had the joy of traveling repeatedly to many corners of this vast subcontinent that is India. It is amazing to see how landscapes, culture, food, music, dances, and even languages change every few hundred kilometers that you drive. You see the highest mountains of the world, great seas, bountiful rivers, and best of all, a people whose thoughts and heritage go back a few thousand years. Join us on an enthralling journey. I am traveling again across the whole of India to bring you spectacular India. This first film will take you to a magical land. We will go across the great Himalayas to the high altitude cold deserts of Ladakh and Spiti. Here the oxygen is scarce in the air and we have to lie down for at least a day to allow our bodies to acclimatize. We will go to the land of the dance of liberation of the Lamas. Ladakh, the land of high mountain passes, is nestled between the tallest mountains of the world, the Himalayas and the Karakoram Range. Here, eternity is never beyond the vision of man. The Buddhist faith arrived here in ancient times. It brought with it belief in the harmony of the whole of creation. The belief that the transitory world around is an illusion called samsara. We must lift the veils of this illusion to see the truth beyond, the truth of our oneness with all that there is.
Life is difficult in the high-altitude deserts. The Buddha, which always looks to the eternal.
Ishan,
These
something
which are
strange is
touched
happening.
in every moment
Parts
by
of
the sacred.
film are getting skipped. Some parts of the film are getting skipped.
I'll check that, sir. I'll check that.
You have downloaded it in your computer, no? Don't
Yes,
play it from
sir.
the
Yes,
net.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. So I'll play it from the beginning then, because that will.
I think
I'll
that's,
play it from the beginning. Yeah.
yes. Thank you.
Over the past 31 years, I've had the joy of traveling repeatedly to many corners of this vast subcontinent that is India. It is amazing to see how landscapes, culture, food, music, dances, and even languages change every few hundred kilometers that you drive. You see the highest mountains of the world, great seas, bountiful rivers, and best of all, a people whose thoughts and heritage go back a few thousand years. Join us on an enthralling journey. I am traveling again across the whole of India to bring you spectacular India. This first film will take you to a magical land. We will go across the great Himalayas to the high altitude cold deserts of Ladakh and Spiti. Here the oxygen is scarce in the air and we have to lie down for at least a day to allow our bodies to acclimatize. We will go to the land of the dance of liberation of the Lamas. Ladakh, the land of high mountain passes, is nestled between the tallest mountains of the world, the Himalayas and the Karakoram Range. Here, eternity is never beyond the vision of man. The Buddhist faith arrived here in ancient times. It brought with it belief in the harmony of the whole of creation. The belief that the transitory world around is an illusion called samsara. We must lift the veils of this illusion to see the truth beyond, the truth of our oneness with all that there is.
Life is difficult in the high-altitude deserts. The Buddhist faith imbues the lives of the people here with patience and understanding, with a vision which is born out of the love of all of creation, a vision which always looks to the eternal. These are lives which are touched in every moment by the sacred. In a life which is constantly imbued with the consciousness of the eternal, the gompas or monasteries play an essential part. These are in fact the centers of all village activity. The Lamas are deeply respected and loved. Prayers are a constant refrain in everyday life. The gentle traditions of Buddhism are continued by the people of Ladakh till today. Their prayer wheels are meant to unite the body, mind and words in harmonious prayer. Mantras, or sacred chants, are written on scrolls of paper which are inside the prayer wheels. Prayers are also recited while turning the wheel. Thus, the faithful remain fully absorbed in thoughts and deeds related to that which is beyond. Buddhists in these mountain regions also write their prayers upon flags which flutter in the breeze. They believe that the offerings of their prayers are taken by the wind and spread throughout the world. Chortans or stupas guard the entrances to the villages and dot the Himalayan landscape. They remind us that the land is truly blessed by the prayers and deeds of the faithful over the years. The Spiti Valley in Himachal Pradesh presents a vast and majestic landscape. It has azure blue skies, mountains of unimaginable hues, and bushes of sia, wild roses that fill the air with their fragrance. The high mountain passes which connect this valley to the rest of the world remain snowbound for half the year. As one can imagine, life is extremely hard. The culture of this region is steeped in the compassion of the Buddhist faith. In ancient times, the people of Tibet and the Indian Himalayas lived in fear of evil spirits, who they believed resided in the mountains and in the winds. This fear prevented them from accepting the compassionate message of Buddhism. Guru Padmasambhava was known to be a great master of Tantric Buddhism. He had studied at the renowned Nalanda University in eastern India, where he had imbibed deep knowledge of Tantric philosophy and rituals. The great Guru swept across the entire mountainous region, through Ladakh, Kinnaur, Lahaul-Spiti, Tibet, Nepal and Arunachal Pradesh, establishing Buddhism everywhere. He used the greater magic of his tantras to subdue the feared demons. He made them defenders of the Buddhist faith. Till today, he remains the most revered deity of the entire Himalayan region. Padmasambhava brought with him the cham, or ritual dance. With this, he scared away negative forces and prepared the mountainous region for Buddhism. When he consecrated the first great monastery of Tibet at Samye, it is believed that he rose up into the air to dance. Where his shadow fell, the land was made pure, and this became the boundary for the sacred space of the monastery. Till today, the cham is performed across the mountains to keep the land blessed for Buddhism to prosper.
The word cham is a very difficult word. It is not translated properly so far, I believe. And there must be an equivalent word for cham in Sanskrit. You believe that through these ritual dances, with meditation, with concentration, and with visualizations, and with good motivations, then you can remove many obstacles that you may face.
The monasteries each have their own dates for the celebration of the cham. The festival is usually held over a period of 2 days, once a year. Chosen monks of the monastery perform the sacred ritual. People gather from all the villages around for the cham.
We are here at the Hemis Monastery, about 32 kilometers south of Leh in Ladakh. This monastery celebrates the birthday of the great Guru Padmasambhava. The Lamas celebrate with 2 days of the cham dance, the monastic dance of the Lamas. The dance celebrates the victory of good over evil. It celebrates the achievements and the magic of Guru Padmasambhava. We see him in his 8 different manifestations as he subdues evil, the evil which had haunted the minds of the people of Tibet.
तंत्रिक में खुद को उसको विचार करके देवता के रूप में बरकत होना पड़ता है, वो विचार रखना होता है। दूसरे धर्म और बौद्ध धर्म में अंतर यही है, तो दूसरे धर्मों में देवता का किसी का भी विचार करेगा, उसकी पूजना करेगा, लेकिन हम उस देवता को खुद नहीं बन सकता है। बुद्धिज्म में जो भी पढ़नी है, आप है, मैं है, या जो भी है, आस्ते आस्ते हम भी बुद्धत्व प्राप्त कर सकता है।
The cham dance of the Lamas signifies the victory of knowledge over ignorance. In Buddhist thought, the greatest evil is the ego. It is that sense of the self which is the greatest illusion that we must lose in order to gain true knowledge. We are in the key monastery, which is high atop a towering hill in the heart of Spiti. Here the cham is performed on a summer's day. The Lamas spend many days in preparation for the cham. They have each selected a deity who they will be, and they meditate. They meditate to lose their own identity and to become that deity. For on the day of the cham, it is not the Lamas who will dance, but the deities who will be on the sacred ground.
अभी तो ऐसे कि लोग ये कि फंक्शन में ऐसे ही तमाशा के रूप में देखता है, वो एक्चुअली ऐसा नहीं है, वो देखने वाला भी एक देवता के दर्शन।
Down through the generations, young Lamas are trained by teachers using texts that are sanctified by time. As the Lamas rehearse, the child monks watch intently. By the time it is their turn to wear the masks, they would already be familiar with the dance movements. The day before the cham, the monks pray to gather their spiritual powers for the sacred dance. These prayers are imbued with deep tantric meaning. symbolic weapons are used to subdue malevolent deities. In Vajrayana Buddhism, evil is not something outside of ourselves. It is our own ego, our attachment to the illusory world around. It is this evil within us which is subdued and transformed through the prayers and finally through the experience of the cham. I am in the sacred storeroom of the key monastery with Lamaji Tenzing. The costumes and masks for the cham are stored here. These masks are very important, for on the sacred ground it is not the individuals, the lamas, who will dance. They have to forget themselves, they have to obliterate their own personalities to become the deity. So it is the deity who will dance.
Actually, all the deities you find in Tantrayana, they are form of different wisdoms, like compassion, the power. So all these qualities of Buddhas appeared in different forms, and then that is easier for practitioners to visualize.
उनके जो कपड़े जो है वो पहनेंगे पहले, तो पूरा वो जो मास्क लगा के, तो हम सोचे इनकी हम उसको फील करेंगे कि वो हमारे हृदय में प्रवेश कर चुका है। पूजा हम रोज़ यहाँ पर 7 दिन पूरा पूजा करते हैं, तो पूजा करके और ये भी मानते हैं कि हमारे जो मन में जो पहले जो गलत सोच हो वगैरह वगैरह ऐसे चले गए हैं, साफ़ हो गए हैं। खुद को पहले उसके काबिल बनाना पड़ता है मंत्र मुझे जाप के, ये पूरा मानना पड़ता है कि ये जा चुका है, हमारे मन में कोई भी वो पाप नहीं है, कोई हम पूरी तरह सोच हैं, तब हम इसको लेकर चंग डांस करते हैं।
Today, on the day of the cham, these are the last few personal moments that the Lamajis have before they surrender their personalities completely to be the deities who will dance upon the ground and shower blessings upon the whole universe.
The cham begins in the morning with the appearance of Lalung Paldor. In the 9th century, King Langdharma had persecuted Buddhists. The monk Lalung Paldor, disguised as a black hat dancer, came close to the king and killed him with an arrow. The event is celebrated in all the monasteries of the Trans-Himalayas as the majestic black hat dance. The masks cover the ordinary day-to-day nature of the men and present instead qualities of the deities within them. There are peaceful masks and those with wrathful expressions. Finally, both symbolize the emptiness of the ultimate nature of all appearances.
A cham, its literary meaning in cham means to stroll. It is believed then Shakyamuni Buddha, under the people tree, when he got awakening, after that he knew what is the true nature of this universe, and then he realized, okay, how I can tell it to the people. So he woke up and started thinking, now whom I should tell it, how I should experience, I should share these things. So he was strolling, while thinking, and this was not already strolling. So each step he was thinking, meditating, and trying to contemplate, making his thought more concrete, more sharpening it. So this is the beginning of the cham. So it is a meditative movements, well choreographed, if you want to say like that. So well choreographed. For the common people, it looked like a dance, But the person who does it, he has to undergo a tremendous kind of a meditative process, and he has to transform himself into a deity.
All sounds in the cham are sacred mantras. The drum is a reminder of the deep sound that resounded at the beginning of creation. It Music is presented as an offering to the divine. It elevates the mind to a deeply contemplative state, freeing it from the bindings of the mundane world. For the eternal moment of the cham, earthly reality is suspended, desires and suffering forgotten, as the deities dance, blessing every being. Vajrayana Buddhist thought has the clarity and indestructible nature of a diamond, as well as the striking nature of a thunderbolt. Its purpose is to free us and to dispel the veils of ignorance with the force of a clap of thunder. The meditating monks perceive an inner reality, far more true than the illusion of the material world around. The linga, or symbol, represents our ego. Finally, it is dismembered and cut into many pieces with the dagger of wisdom. Once the linga, our ego, is destroyed, true consciousness is liberated. Men, women and children gather at the monastery from villages near and far. For these deeply devout Buddhists, the sacred performance allows them to be in the presence of the deities they worship. The Torma is considered to be the abode of Yama. In the days of the prayers, all negative forces within us are sent to the Torma. The faith of the people is profound. Here at the key monastery, they lie under the feet of the passing monks. They yearn for the touch of the robes of the deities. They believe that this will bless them. At the culmination of the cham, the Torma is taken out of the monastery to a remote place. Here, it is thrown away by the Lamas.
But sometimes some monks who are practicing Dharma seriously, they can come in that kind of form and so forth, but it has become very rare because of this degenerate time, because the people's faith in spirituality or people's faith in Dharma has tremendously reduced. The times have changed and it's changing, of course, and that's why we call this time is degenerating, what we call Kalyug.
लामा के विचार में देवताओं का करुणा का जितना उसका विचार होना चाहिए, मैंने कहने का मतलब ऐसा है। वो कितना रख पाता है वो लमाओं पर निर्भर करेगा, ये रख सकता है नहीं सकता मैं गारंटी नहीं कह सकता हूँ, क्योंकि अभी थोड़ा ज़माना थोड़ा कलजुग आ रहा है ना।
This is the land made pure by Guru Padmasambhava of the Nalanda University more than 1,000 years ago. The search for the emancipation of the self continues till today. It is the desire to rise above the attachments and the illusions of the material world. A search of which the Cham is an ultimate expression.
My many thanks to Doordarshan. It is in fact, I think, remarkable that in this very commercialized world, we have this public service broadcaster who for 25 years has taken so much interest in sponsoring my deeply researched films on Indian culture, on Indian paintings, on Indian sculptures, on Buddhist subjects. My deep gratitude to them for encouraging this work. So the philosophic path in India, of which the Cham dance is a beautiful expression, is all about leaving behind Maya or Mithya, our constant concerns with the material world. To leave these behind, to leave behind the noise and confusion of this material world, to be able to see another reality, a far truer reality. And one must note here that all classic dance in India was meant for this. There was a social contract between the dancer and the audience. It was not a performance in the sense of something to be seen on a stage and for people to clap in their approval. It was in fact meditation. It was both from the part of the dancer and from the part of the audience who shared this great experience. It was a meditation in which the ephemeral passing concerns of the day-to-day world were forgotten. And instead, the dancer and the audience were taken to this another reality where the deities, and who are the deities? The deities are personifications of the qualities which are within you. So these qualities are personified and brought before you in the dance. And in the grace of the dance, you're constantly reminded of the grace which underlies all that there is. So the audience comes, the villagers come, and they lose themselves in devotion to the beautiful qualities which are presented by the meditating lamas. Similarly, another surviving example of the classical dance of India is the Rasa Lila in Manipur. And I've had the pleasure of making a film on that too. Perhaps one day I will take the pleasure of showing it to you. Where again, the social contract is still alive, and the people come not to appreciate a dance form, but to lose themselves in devotion. These are at least two valuable gems of the classic dance of India, which I have seen surviving. Of course, here one must point out that even the Cham dance, where it is done in the monasteries which have a large number of tourists visiting it, there the purpose of the dance is lost. There, it is not a sacred ritual being done for the most important of reasons. It is a performance for tourists who will just give a few dollars for it. In fact, the importance of the villagers who have come to worship the Lamajis is also forgotten. So, in the preservation of culture, we must be very careful to see the roots of the culture, what the culture actually is. Because if we are going to preserve it only as a vacuous shape without the truth which is inside it, then that will be a great loss to us. So Ishan, I will be very happy to take any questions if there are.
So first of all, thank you so much for doing this film screening. It was beautiful to see the film, and it's good to know about the culture of a less explored uh, place like Ladakh. We don't have any question, but there are so many fans of yours watching, and they are commenting, big fan of yours. So one question that I would like to ask you is, you have done so many films on Indian heritage. Which one project is the closest to your heart, if you think, and if you go back down, go down the memory lane?
Well, in some ways, that's a difficult question because each one of the subjects is fascinating. Each one of the subjects is beautiful, and each one of the subjects is ultimately an expression of that wonderful quality of Indian culture, that wonderful search for the truth, that great understanding of compassion and the truth which lies far beyond our day-to-day concerns. So each subject is beautiful, but I would say that it was Ajanta that showed me the path. The many weeks that I spent photographing the paintings of Ajanta, it is that which showed me a marvelous world of compassion. It is that which perhaps had upon me the effect which ancient Indian art, according to the Chitra Sutra, is meant to have. The purpose of Indian art is not just to show us the optical reality of the world around us. It is to take us to the essence that is within and beyond that optical reality. It is to show us the grace which underlies all that there is. And it was Ajanta, which is perhaps the most beautiful embodiment of this philosophic view and had its greatest impact upon me. Thank you.
So I think it must require, whenever you do a project, it must require a lot of logistics. And taking all the logistics with you to these places might be very difficult sometimes. So can you give us a backstory of the production of either Ajanta movie or Ajanta painting series or the series on the charm dance?
Mm, I'll give you the backstory about the production of the 26 films on the paintings of India and the 26 films on the sculpture of India. Now, each one of these projects was a continuous shooting spread over each one of them spread over 240 days, in which I and the shooting crew we had to sleep in more than 200 different places. So you can imagine it was practically one night in one place for 8 months. Our because the time was very short to cover all corners of India, including remote places, and to cover all museums in India and all major museums in the world that have collections of Indian paintings. All this to be done in just 8 months was actually, it was practically impossible. But we did it one night in one place. We did it with an average waking up time of 4 o'clock in the morning every day. We had an average driving distance of 250 kilometers every day. You see, we used to wake up at about 4 o'clock. We used to get ready and start driving to our next destination. On the way, we used to shoot a sunrise. So, for instance, for the paintings of India, we shot about, I think, almost 200 sunrises are in those films. So, and then we would reach wherever we had to go. And there, much in advance, I had written letters and fixed up with temples, I had fixed up with museums, I had fixed up with people to interview. There was a little book which was made of the shooting. So you could open that book and say, on day 184, we will be waking up in Kanchipuram and we will be shooting with so and so, etc. So it was that kind of experience. I remember sometimes we even woke up at 1 o'clock in the morning. You might wonder why. Well, if you wake up in Madurai and your shooting is going to be sunrise in Kanyakumari, then you have to wake up at 1 o'clock, get ready, and be on the move. And one may imagine that after 8 months of such arduous journey, the crew, the shooting crew, must have been really tired and exhausted after the travel. But that was not so at all. In fact, when the shooting finished, everybody was deeply disappointed that this marvelous journey was coming to an end. So that's a kind of logistics. That's why the Limca Book of Records has constantly given me the award for the most amount of travel in India, because all this was done for paintings of India, all this was done for sculpture of India, all this was done for my series on the story of Buddhism. And it's been for Spectacular India, which is another 26 films, out of which you saw the film today. So logistically, it has been a most interesting, most fascinating time to do this work. But I'm very glad this work has been done, because um, otherwise there is no perspective. All the books that one used to pick up, whether by Indians or written by authors from abroad, they had a comparatively extremely limited perspective. Now, it is only when you get to travel so much personally, only then that you are able to realize that at any given point in time, the iconography and figures that you see in the Buddhist monasteries in Ladakh are in fact exactly the same as the artistic representations and iconography of the Jain reliefs at Kalagumalai, right next to Kanyakumari. Now you need to actually travel yourself, and only then do such things start coming out for you to see. And this is just one example, but the similarity of Indian manuscript paintings with the mural paintings of the 12th century at Bagan, I could go on and on for a very long time. So it is only actual physical travel which can bring out much about the culture, which otherwise the reading of books does not provide. Thank you.
That's true. And we have some questions from the first question is from Tara Dhar Hasnan, ma'am, and her question is: are you currently working on any new project?
I'm presently trying to put together some of the vast collection of work which I have done. You see, Tara, I find that I have about uh, 53,000 photographs which have been taken all across India, all across practically all the countries of Asia, taken in many countries of Europe where the early churches are reflecting certain artistic influences which I see from coming from the Buddhist monasteries. And out of these 53,000 pictures, well, almost all of them have not been catalogued. Without being catalogued, one day these are going to be lost to the world. And about digitizing them, because the vast majority of all this work is on ectochrome transparency slides, which is that wonderful material we used to work with, which there's nothing like it around anymore, when things have become much easier and much cheaper through the digital mediums. But that wonderful quality that we used to have. Now, most of this material is slides. So only about 10,000 of them have been digitized as yet. So I have to digitize a very large number of slides, which process has started. You would recall helping me to find a scanner once in Singapore. That was really so wonderful and good of you and Rasa to help me so much with that. But a lot has to be done. So whether it is these 53,000 photographs of all the heritage, or whether it is at least 10,000 photographs of Buddhist heritage, that has become a preoccupation. Also, there are many things that I used to mention in my talks, but not dwell upon them further. Like today, for instance, a scholar who's heard me talk many times rang me up to ask if I could give a talk about the women in ancient India, the position of women in ancient India. Now, he has heard me talk and he has heard references to such things in my talks many times. And he knows that there is some information which perhaps should be conveyed. I'm sorry for this disturbance. Would you take that phone? Yes, thanks. So, I'm also now beginning to very slowly put together a few talks. For instance, now I will be putting together this talk about the role of women in ancient India. A few months ago, I put together a talk which is extremely valuable for me, which is on the birth of deities in Indian art. I used to talk about this during the course which I gave on the history of Indian art. But to properly sit down and make a clear talk about it had not been done. So such are the things, Tara. I feel that it is important to organize these things so that the information may be retained. Thank you. And thank you, Taras, for your constant and such warm interest and encouragement which you give to me.
So we have another question from Stan Loy, I think. And his question is, sir, when did you last visited Ladakh? Was it post the Bollywood film Three Idiots? If then, how you find the changes brought by dramatic increase in number of tourists in Ladakh?
A number of what?
A
Tourists.
dramatic increase of tourists.
Right. Would somebody kindly remind me of when the film Three Idiots was made?
I'll just check. I think it was 2013, if I'm not wrong.
Right. Now, most of my
2009, sorry.
work, most of my work was in Ladakh, was done in the last century, and much of my work in Ladakh. And of course, when I say Ladakh, I now mean Ladakh and Spiti and Kinnaur, Lahaul-Spiti and Kinnaur, these trans-Himalayan areas. So much of it was also done in the first 10 years of this century. So I have not done much work in Ladakh beyond the time of the making of the Three Idiots. But I would say this, that when I began to visit Ladakh, and during much of the period in which I was visiting Ladakh, and also during the period when I was repairing ancient monasteries structurally in Ladakh, because you see, I had found that extremely valuable art was in the early monasteries in Ladakh. But because of a little rainfall that had started, these monasteries were at dire risk, because being a desert, parched desert, even a drop of water used to cut through the mud through which these monasteries were made. And I spoke to many of the important institutions that were engaged in conservation work. But at that time, nobody was willing to take on the task of conservation in the high altitude areas. So I was left with no choice really except to do it myself. So with the active involvement of the Rinpoches of Ladakh, with the active involvement of many villages of Ladakh and local masons who knew about the qualities of the local muds out of which the monasteries are made, and with the wonderful cooperation of the Center for Compositional Characterization of Materials and the Bhabha Atomic Research Center. They were absolutely wonderful. And I got a lot of scientific support from them. And with the measureless, unbelievable generosity of the Indian Army, who supported my work, and with the support of UNESCO, I restored monasteries in Ladakh. And then other people also came into it. So I had a lot of experience of being with the Ladakhi people. And I must say that the people of Ladakh were wonderful people. They never argued, they never fought. If somebody didn't really agree with you, okay, he might get up and go away. And then I saw tourists coming in, both foreign and Indian tourists. And the effect of the tourists was to ruin the character of the place completely. You know, suddenly those people who never used to argue, I saw them getting into fist fights with each other in the middle of the road. Taxi drivers fighting with each other over some, I don't know what, little causes. So it is a fact that today's so-called modern culture is a great loss in human terms. And finally, whatever material progress it may bring, it is the greatest loss that there can be to humanity. To lose the depth of the self, to lose the kindness, to lose the generosity, to lose the understanding of each other, to lose the empathy with each other, to lose that silence within, which helps us to understand what is around us. So I'm not able to relate to a period beyond 2013 very much. I have been there and I've seen the same thing increasing, that commercialism has only been increasing. But much before that also, I saw that much of this wonderful Buddhist culture of Ladakh was getting lost, whether it's foreign tourists or Indian tourists. Thank you very much.
So we have two requests from for you. First is from Tara Dharma, and her request is to write for an article on the birth of deities in Indian art. And the second request is from Manik Abhi, and his request is if you can conduct workshop on photography and documentary filmmaking of Indian art sometimes. And I think there's one comment by Ratna Voyages. I think that's the channel's name.
I will forget the first two. Let me please respond to the first two, and then I'll request you to tell me the third.
Sure, sir. Sure,
Yeah.
sir.
So yes, Tara. I mean, it will be such a pleasure to provide you that article. In fact, um, um, a, a sort of a baby step version of that has been is in the process of being published by the heritage by the Heritage Society, Indian Heritage Society of Singapore, to whom you had introduced me and to whom I had given a very small talk on this subject some time back. But that is the talk has progressed vastly from there. So I will have to, and I should do an article, and it will be such a pleasure to give it to you. So thank you very much for the suggestion, Tara. Sorry, the second was
Second was
yes,
the workshop on photography and documentary filmmaking on Indian arts.
yes, it is a possibility. May I ask which institution is it that I would be giving this course on behalf of.
I think that's a suggestion from somebody who is watching us. His name is Mani Kabhi. So he wanted to ask in general and
Yes, this should surely be done. And if some institution who's in the field uh, takes an interest, it may become a little simpler to coordinate the doing of this course, and to also see that a good number of people who would benefit from this subject may be involved in it, because there are limits to how many times I can give courses. But yes, I would love to give this course, and if money would help to see if enough people were involved in it, then more people would benefit. So thank you very much for the suggestion.
so Manik is from JNU, he says. So hopefully JNU will do a small introductory course maybe with sir. So sir, thank you so much for taking out time in spite of your eye infection. You took out time and you did this film screening and also interacted with the viewers. It is always such an honor to host you, and we look forward to hosting you again sometime.
No, you are such a fine and gentle young person. It is an immense pleasure to speak for you, Ishan. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, and thank you to Sujata ma'am for introducing the speaker this evening.
Thank you. Our pleasure.
Have a great evening, sir, and have a great evening all those who